I welcome you all to Ansarkari. So in this video, we'll be analyzing different newspapers for 27th of March 2023. So we'll be having a look at different important topics like regarding disqualification, what are the important provisions. However, we have covered this in detail in yesterday's newspaper, but today again, we'll take it up and we'll be going through the points that we missed yesterday. And we are seeing that Khalistani protesters, they are active in USA, and the separatists, they have attempted to incite violence in US. Apart from that, Nikat and Lavlina, they add more golden sheen. So you need to remember that these two players, they're related to the sport of boxing. So that's there. So let's start with the analysis for today. So we're seeing that net direct tax growth for 2022-23, it slows down to 15%. So India's net direct tax collections growth, which stood at about 17% for 2022-23 by early March, is expected to moderate to 15% for the complete financial year. And the tax receipts from the direct taxes, they had grown about 49% in the previous financial year, and the sharp growth was attributable to the economy's gradual recovery from COVID-19. So इससे पिछले वाले financial year में the main reason of such a nice growth was कि हमारी economy, we were recovering out of COVID-19. So that was one of the main reasons. But in the subsequent financial year, we are seeing कि उसके बाद there has been a slowdown, and inflows of the direct taxes, they had risen almost 20% as of mid-December 2020, but each successive month it has recorded a slight slowdown. So इसलिए पूरे financial year की अगर हम growth rate देखें तो that is slowed down. So we're seeing obviously now Congress would be holding protest because of Rahul Gandhi's disqualification. So that's why the disqualification thing is very important for the prelims rounds. So EPFO subscribers, they are captive investors of two Adani stocks. So the aftermath of the Hindenburg research report may have made several large investors rethink their exposures to the Adani group. However, one large pool of capital has continued to invest in the two Adani stocks, including the flagship Adani Enterprises, and will keep doing so till at least September unless its trustees rethink their investment approach when they meet this week. So these investments, they are being made by the India's largest retirement fund, which is EPFO, which manages the nest eggs of 27.73 crore formal sector employees, and it invests about 15% of its corpus into the exchange traded funds, which are linked to NSE and BSE. So ISRO puts 36 satellites into orbit. So LVM-3, it is the heaviest payload rocket of ISRO. So we need to remember its name, LVM-3, the heaviest payload rocket. Then it was carrying 36 OneWeb satellites on board. And the satellites separated successfully from the rocket, and they were dispensed in the 9 phases. And this is the 6th flight of LVM-3. So it was launched from the Satish Dhawan Space Center. So we need to know about its location, if there is any water body around it. So that becomes important because a question on similar lines has already been asked in prelims. So yesterday also we saw about the bridge, which is the world's highest railway bridge, which is being built at height of 359 meters over the Chenab River in Jammu and Kashmir's Resi district. So this is the world's highest railway bridge. So its location is important for us, and it is being built over which river? So it has been built over the Chenab River. So former CGI UU Lalit says that the current state of affairs requires urgent steps. He was speaking at the launch of report which states that prohibitory orders were issued 6,100 times in the national capital in 2021. So conferring the drastic powers upon the executive of the police through section 144 of the CRPC is not acceptable in a nation which is governed by the rule of law. And he made this comment while speaking in the launch event of a report which was titled The Use and the Misuse of Section 144 CRPC. As per the IPCC report, Maharashtra is going to face water scarcity and floods at the same time. So you can imagine that floods also and at the same time water scarcity. So over the next few years, Maharashtra is expected to face these twin challenges. Apart from the higher temperatures, according to IPCC's latest report. So it recently released its synthesis report and it outlines a comprehensive assessment of the current state of scientific knowledge related to climate change and predicts that temperatures will continue to rise globally. So Union Home Minister says that religion-based quota violates the constitution. So he says that the party, the BJP, never believes in appeasement politics. Congress had given 4% reservation to minorities in order to make it their vote bank. And the BJP redistributed the quota to Vokalegas and Veerashaiva Lingayats. So he was there in Karnataka. So he says that the reservation given to minorities was unconstitutional. There is no provision to give reservation to anybody based on the religion. Coming to the editorial section, so already discussed a lot about the disqualification of MPs and even the MLAs. So we have important provisions. We'll just quickly go through it. So firstly, we have Section 8 of the RPA 1951, which talks about and it specifies various offenses and the conviction for which entails the disqualification of member of the legislature if a person is convicted for more than 2 years or more, then that MP or MLA is convicted for 6 years after the release from the prison. So that is one thing. And clause 4 has exempted sitting members from instant disqualification for 3 months to enable them to appeal against that conviction. But this clause of Section 8, Clause 4 under the RPA 1951, it was struck down under the Lily Thomas case of 2013 as being ultra vires the Constitution by a 2-judge bench on the ground that Parliament does not have any power to enact such an exemption for sitting members of the legislatures. And finally, the effect of this judgment was that there is an instant disqualification of the sitting legislature as soon as he is convicted. But at the same time, the court also made it clear that in the event of the appellate court staying the conviction and the sentence, the disqualification will be lifted and the membership will be restored to him. So we need to have clarity about all these provisions and also the important Supreme Court judgment. Then as far as the articles are concerned, you need to know more about Article 102 and Article 191 of the Constitution. So That's an homework, that's an exercise that you need to find out more about. And we have discussed already about the Lily Thomas case, so that is important. So you need to remember even such type of questions can be asked, that this judgment is related to which thing. So Lily Thomas case is related to disqualification of the legislators. And so in our multi-party democracy, every political party is a potential ruling party. So every political leader is exposed, it is exposed to the danger of being hauled up for defamation and put out of the electoral process for long years. And people of mature democracies, they must be able to enjoy humor without any fear. So people, they must learn to laugh at themselves, otherwise we'll always be busy sending people to jail on the charges of defamation. And you can also find out about Article 103, which shows that the President of India is that authority who decides that a sitting member has become subject to disqualification in all the cases which come under Article 102. So the power lies in the hands of the President as per Article 103. So India leads in internet shutdowns, but it lacks tools to assess the impacts of such shutdowns. So about 60% of all the internet shutdowns that were recorded the world over between 2016 and 2022, they took place in India. So we can just remember it by like more than 50% of all the global internet shutdowns were there in India. So there have been different maps and charts which is showing us the data. So this map one is showing the state-wise instances of internet shutdowns between 2012 and March 2023. So maximum were recorded in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. And then we have Rajasthan, UP, Maharashtra. So these are the three main states where such instances were, they showed higher frequency. So top 5 countries in terms of internet shutdowns in 2022, India is the top one, followed by Ukraine, Iran, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. So India, and then Iran, Myanmar, Bangladesh, all they're part of Asia. Even Ukraine. And even in 2018, India was at rank 1 in 2000. So since 2018, we can say India has always been at rank 1. But when we have a look at the numbers, we are seeing a decline in the number in the instances of internet shutdowns. But still, India is at rank 1. So understanding the IMF bailouts. So firstly, this thing is in news because of the economic situation of two India's neighbors, that is Sri Lanka and Pakistan. So first question that is raised is why and what are the factors responsible for such major economic crisis in these two countries? What are the risks associated with them? Then how does the currency devaluation and the price rise affect an economy? And what is the International Monetary Fund, and why does IMF impose certain conditions before lending money to the countries? So we'll be looking into these important questions. So recently, IMF, it has conferred a confirmed a $3 billion bailout for Sri Lanka's struggling economy, and there are also negotiations with Pakistan for $1.1 billion of bailout plan. So why do nations they seek an IMF bailout? So countries they seek the help from the IMF usually when their economies they face major macroeconomic risk, mostly in the form of a currency crisis. So in both the countries, we are seeing that their forex reserves is falling. For instance, when we take up the case of Sri Lanka and Pakistan, both the countries have witnessed domestic prices, they are rising rapidly. And there have been, like in the history, when we talk about such instances in other countries, we've also seen that it also leads to hyperinflation. And at the same time, there is exchange value of their currencies, it drops steeply against the US dollar. So that is one thing, and such currency crises, they are generally the result of the gross mismanagement of the nation's currency by its central bank. So the main reason is a mismanagement of the nation's currency, and because of that, we see the domestic prices shooting up very sharply, and then the exchange value of the currencies also drops steeply. So such spending, it eventually results in a rapid rise of the overall money supply, which in turn it causes prices to rise across the economy and the exchange value of the currency to drop. So under such situations, even the central banks, they are forced to print new money. So because of this, we know that this is one of the most dangerous steps which can lead to exponential increase and escalation of inflation. And that is what exactly happens. So inflation becomes uncontrollable, and then the exchange value also starts falling. So a rapid and unpredictable fall in the value of the currency, it can destroy the confidence in the said currency and it can affect the economic activity, as people they may turn hesitant to accept the currency in exchange for the goods and services. So because of such developments, even the people's confidence in that particular country's currency falls, and they stop accepting that currency. And even then foreign investors, they would be unwilling to invest in that particular economy, because obviously because of that instability and the crisis like situation. So under all these circumstances and this scenario, the countries, they are only left to seek help from the IMF to meet their external debt and other obligations, and to purchase the essential imports, and also to prop up the exchange value of their currencies. So that's when they approach IMF for help. So how does actually IMF help the countries is the next question. So all of us, we have heard about SDRs, which are the special drawing rights. So IMF basically lends money, often in the form of SDRs, to the troubled economies that seek lenders' assistance. And SDRs, they represent a basket of 5 currencies, which includes US dollar, euro, Chinese yuan, Japanese yen, and British pound. So these are the 5 currencies in SDR. And IMF then it carries out its lending to the troubled economies through a number of lending programs, which includes the extended credit facility, the flexible credit line, and the standby agreement. So already a question has been asked on this, that these facilities are provided by which organization or which body. So it is the IMF. And countries receiving the bailouts, they can use the SDRs for various purposes depending on their individual circumstances. And currently, both these economies of Sri Lanka and Pakistan, they are in urgent need for the US dollars to import their essential items and also to pay their foreign debt. And also because of such economic crisis, the food prices they also shoot very significantly, and it leads to concerns regarding the food security also. And looking at a little background of IMF, so the International Monetary Fund, it was set up in 1945 out of the Bretton Woods Conference, and the another partner was the World Bank, which was set up. So they were set up together, and the primary goal of the IMF back then was to bring about the international economic coordination to prevent the competing currency devaluation by the countries trying to promote their own exports. So back then, this was their main aim, and eventually, IMF it evolved to be a lender of the last resort to the governments of countries that has to deal with severe currency crisis. So ultimately, that's how their role it evolved with time, with changing conditions. So as we had a look at the question that there are certain conditions which are important to meet by that particular country before seeking or before finally getting a bailout from the IMF. So it usually imposes some conditions on the countries before IMF lends any money to them. For example, a country may have to agree to implement certain structural reforms as a condition to receive the IMF loans. And the IMF's conditional lending, it has been controversial as many believe that these reforms are too tough on the public. So there are some concerns also regarding the conditions which are laid down by IMF. So what is the biotransformation technology and how it can reduce the packaging waste? So biotransformation technology. So a UK-based startup, it claims to have developed this technology that can alter the state of plastics and make them biodegradable without leaving behind any microplastics. So in the food packaging and healthcare industries, they could greatly benefit from such an innovation. So it holds a huge amount of potential benefit. So, e-commerce giant Amazon, it generated an estimated 321 million kilograms of plastic from packaging waste in 2021 alone, and this is a result of billions of boxes that it shipped to its customers globally. So this process of, altering the state of plastics and making them biodegradable is known as biotransformation. So they are transformed as biodegradable. That's why the term biotransformation. So it claims that this technology, it would digest the plastic packaging waste naturally with the help of microbes and biodegrade the waste without leaving behind any microplastics. So even we are facing threat from microplastics, and these are majorly also used in even cosmetics industry, so their ingestion in our body is highly dangerous for our health. And this kind of technology, it is already being used in India by some food-based industries, and also within the healthcare and the pharma industries. This technology provides biodegradable solutions for non-woven hygiene products like diapers, sanitary napkins, facial pads. So, talking about some alternatives for reducing the plastic waste. So, a switch to jute or a paper based packaging could potentially cut down the plastic waste. But again, this alternative, they also have their own negatives. So, this could also build sustainability within the paper industry and save on the import bill on ethylene solutions. So, the wooden packaging is yet another alternative that is available. So, we saw that we can go for jute bags and jute packaging, paper-based packaging, wooden packaging, but that will make the packaging bulkier and it would increase the cost when we talk about the wood packaging. So the government of Tamil Nadu in Chennai, it has organized a national expo and conference of startups to raise awareness on alternatives to single-use plastics. And alternatives showcase they were made using coir, buggies, rice, and wheat bran, plant and agricultural residues, banana and areca leaves, jute, and cloth. So there were several alternatives which were showcased during this expo. So even like the stubble which is usually burned and which is again one of the reasons and causes for air pollution, even that can be used in packaging. So the Khalistani protesters, they openly threaten Indian ambassador in US, and they abuse a journalist covering the protest. So US Secret Service and police, they bring in reinforcement, they prevent the destruction of property. So even the Khalistani supporters, they are present even in Canada. So India tells Canada to arrest those who threaten the missions. So we've been seeing that since we saw that there was huge violent protest in Punjab during late 1970s, when we saw that there was emergence of Bhindranwale. So here also we are seeing that a self-styled person named Amritpal, because of his rise and he taking over the leadership, this thing is again in news. So even during like late 1970s, we saw that these kind of violent elements, they shifted to these countries like Australia, Canada, US, and other European countries, and we are seeing the impact of this today. So the union government, it has capped the maximum rate of GST compensation cess that would be levied on pan masalas, cigarettes, and other forms of tobacco, and linked the highest rate to their retail sale price. So as per the amendment, the cess rate for the pan masala, it will be 51% of the retail sale price per unit. And we need to know that cess is basically the amount that is collected using a cess is used for only one particular purpose for which it was collected. So AUKUS, it comprises of Australia, UK, and US. So its focus is on submarine technology, and there is no room for a fourth nation. So the primary focus of AUKUS arrangement between Australia, UK, and US is the submarine technology development, and the US and UK, they're going to provide nuclear submarines to Australia, and even within that, there is no room for fourth country. The representatives of these countries, they had to say this thing, and they said that on any potential collaboration between the alliance and India, so there is basically no space for any fourth country in this grouping. So there is a second pillar for broader technology cooperation, but there is room for cooperation with other countries, including India. And this year's Quad Summit would be hosted by Australia. And we know about the members, so it is a security arrangement between four countries because Quad means four. Seven that is going to be there. And AUKUS, it is not a NATO for the Indo-Pacific, rather it is focused on technology, and it is very specific about developing strategically important capabilities to maintain stability. A diplomatic source has said this because China is often referred to AUKUS as Indo-Pacific's NATO. So we saw that Israel has finally put 36 OneWeb satellites into orbit using the LVM-3, which is the heaviest payload rocket of Israel. Coming to the world page, so Hong Kong citizens stage first protest in years under strict rules, and we've seen that COVID-19 norms and restrictions, they have been lifted off. So Hong Kong is also one of the financial hubs. It is returning to normalcy. So Netanyahu fires defense minister for urging halt to the judicial overhaul, and we've been seeing that even in France, there have been going very violent protests because of the increase in age of retirement to 64 years. So the situation in different countries, for us, it is just, merely it is important for us to be aware about what is the situation in different countries and what are the reasons of protest in different nations. So Honduras, even it establishes ties with China, leaving Taiwan with fewer partners. The Central American nation, which is Honduras, joins the likes of Nicaragua, Panama, and Costa Rica in recognizing Beijing and ending ties with Taipei. The Taipei is the capital of Taiwan, and officials from the Asian island country hit out at the move, say that it has been triggered by the financial reasons. So over the President Emmanuel Macron's pension reforms, you can see in this picture violent protests in the police forces. We've been protesting violently. So when we talk about the Moore's law, the coordinating concept, so these are among the many words historian of science and technology Cyrus Moody who used to describe Moore's law in 2015 to commemorate 50 years of the tenet. So by then, Dr. Moody, now at Maastricht University, Netherlands, meant to say that one of the things that kept the law going was the law itself, creating a form of self-fulfilling prophecy, and the businessman and engineer for whom the law is named, Gordon Moore, who is the co-founder of the Intel Corporation, passed away on 24th of March. So in 1965, Dr. Murray observed that the number of transistors on an integrated circuit, they would double every year. So persistent inflation signals the Federal Reserve has its work cut out over the next few months regarding the rate increases, and a hawkish stance comes with unintended consequences. So recently, Fed has increased their policy rate because we are seeing that inflation, it is on a sticky trend. So has India's corporation tax gamble really paid off or not by now is the main question that we'll be looking through this news piece with the help of data. So from being raised to 45% in India's historic budget of 1991 to now just around half of that. The corporate tax rates in India, they have come a long way and they're now indeed more competitive globally. And there was a massive cut that was announced in 2019 effectively that resulted in 10 percentage point drop in the corporate tax rate, further reducing the burden on the companies. And the effective tax rate among the Indian companies, it has now fallen below even the statutory concessional rate. So larger firms, they have benefited the most with the lower tax rate as they have availed more deductions and incentives, or they have shifted to the new lower tax regime. So such giveaways have of course come at the cost to the center. Meanwhile, we saw that the initial objective of freeing up the corporate money to push the jobs and investments remains unmet. So the main objective that still remains unmet. And now let's have a look at the data that is given here. So how much tax do Indian companies they need to pay? So it is 25% of the profits for the domestic firms with gross turnover of less than rupees 400 crores, and it's 30% for those with the higher turnover. And so do all the companies they have to pay these tax rates? No, because they also avail various exemptions and deductions. So the actual tax outgo as a percentage of the profit, that is called the effective tax rate. So in 2019-20, the year it's when we saw the major tax cuts, one was that more companies they came under the 25% bracket, and second result was that a lower 22% rate was given to the firms foregoing all the exemptions and the incentives. So for these kind of firms, they were offered a corporate tax rate of 22%. So how much do the biggies pay? So tax outgo the top 10 companies by the market capitalization for year 2021-22. So different companies and their share has been given. So the largest one is paid by TCS. Then we have Reliance Industries Limited, followed by ICICI Bank. Then we have Infosys, followed by IGC, and then HCL Technology. So you can just have a look. And even here we have the bias in terms of biggies paying the largest share. So obviously because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw the corporate tax revenues were falling. But again, since we have recovered back, so the share has been increasing in terms of center's tax collections from the corporate tax. And when we compare the tax share from the personal income tax and the corporate tax, we are seeing the share of corporate tax is higher than that of the income tax. So right now there's one thing that globally the countries they're trying to come on the same page as far as imposition of the same kind of global corporate tax rate is concerned, because right now we see that there are certain countries which are called tax havens, where the companies they try to set up their businesses and then they open their subsidiaries in different countries so that they have to pay less amount of tax rate. So with this common global tax rate, corporate tax rate, this thing would not be basically available, and this would not be misused by the companies. Coming to Financial Express now. So untimely rains and hailstorm, they hit the rabi crop. So majorly they have impacted the wheat cultivation because the crop had almost, it has been ripened and was ready to get harvested. And at this point of time, the rainfall and the hailstorms, they have destroyed the crop. So the key wheat growing states in India, Punjab, Haryana, UP, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, they got more than normal rainfall in March. And the Agriculture Ministry, it had estimated record wheat output for 2022-23 crop year, but harvesting of near mature crops, they are now delayed till middle of the next month. And government aims to purchase around 34 million tons of wheat in April to June marketing season. So 10% impact on the wheat yield is being seen because of these untimely and unseasonal rains. So the damages, they are widespread, with north, west, and eastern parts of the country is being affected because of these rains. So mutual funds, they raise to maximize the inflows before 1st of April. So they have opened up subscriptions to various debt, international and gold schemes to maximize their inflows. And investors, they are rushing to subscribe to the schemes that offer the indexation benefit before this financial year ends. So in a swift reaction to the amendment to the finance bill, which was recently passed in the parliament, which will not allow the indexation benefit for a clutch of schemes. So these fund houses, they are basically now trying that before 1st of April, they would be trying to attract as much of investments into these mutual funds as possible. So indexation is basically in the context of the inflation rate. Whenever there's an increase in inflation rate, your returns are accordingly provided. So basically your returns or your income is not impacted because of increase in inflation. So here again, this article is talking about Russia and China. And yesterday only we saw in yesterday's newspaper about the growing closeness of Russia and China and their impact on India. So even in terms of the dominance of Russia in semiconductors, we've been seeing and we've been looking at other options of diversification and specialization of different processes by different countries so that we can have a comprehensive and a resilient supply chain, and we at the same time we are able to ensure that our dependence upon China gets reduced, because then obviously it raises the risk and most power is concentrated in the hands of China then. So despite the drop in the venture capital funding in India in 2022, we see that deal volume, it rose, and it was led by an expansion in seed to Series B deals. So venture funding continued to see democratization with emerging hubs beyond Bengaluru, Mumbai, and the National Capital Region, receiving around 18% of the funding and accounting for 9 of the 23 unicorns added last year. So this chart you can see venture capital funding drops from record highs. For at the global level, it is fallen, and Asia Pacific region it is fallen. So it is basically fallen for UK, China, India, US, Asia Pacific, and even at the global level when we compare 2021 and 22 levels. And in India, we saw the growth of small ticket deals. So small ticket deals involves, they are basically amounting to less than $10 million. So in such deals, these small ticket deals, we have seen an increase. So the large ticket ones we have seen a fall, and large ticket ones are the deals which involves the $100 million plus funding. So here we are seeing a fall. So Putin says that Moscow is going to place nuclear weapons on Belarus. We've already had a look at this news. So no military alliance by Russia and China, and cooperation is going to stay transparent between these two countries. And Russia and China, they are not creating a military alliance, and the cooperation would be, uh, it would be transparent. So GO2 VIT picked for Eminence 5 years ago. The private universities, they wait and wait. So despite tall claims and the green lights, government is yet to sign the final MOUs with the universities that were selected for the institution of eminence from Navi Mumbai to Odisha and Tamil Nadu. So Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology, we had the Vellore Institute of Technology, Amrit Vishwa Vidyapeetham, and then Geo Institute. So there's still things are lingering on. And in this context, we can find out more about such institution of eminence, which institutions they have this status. That is also important for us to know. The Prime Minister urges people to donate organs, and we've been having awareness drives regarding this. So, one person can give new life to 8 to 9 people. So, Prime Minister Modi, he appealed to people to opt for organ donation and said when a person donates one's body after death, it creates the possibility for 8 to 9 people to get a new life. And recently, there was a decision taken to remove the age criteria of less than 65 years for donating the organs. So, any person, irrespective of his or her age, they can donate their organs. And the condition of being a state domicile for receiving the organs that has also been done away with to allow the needy to register themselves. So FCRA is on hold in Tirupati Trust. It sits on rupees 26 crore forex and it seeks a way out. So SBI refuses to deposit, saying that source is unknown and it has been fined rupees 3 crores also. So TDD's forex cash stockpile, it is given here in terms of the currencies, and the currencies like it belongs to which country has been listed. So maximum there is in US dollar. So with its registration under the FCRA, that is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, under suspension for the past 3 years, the country's richest religious trust, that is the Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanams, it faces an unprecedented situation because now basically its registration, it is no longer valid under the FCRA, and it is having, at the same time, it is having such a huge amount of forex reserve. So what is it going to do is the question now. So Nikhat wins her second world title and Lavlina her first. And both these sports persons, sports women, they are related to boxing. So whenever like we're talking about the institutions, like in the beginning we were talking here about the first article, institutions of eminence. So you need to know that what kind of benefits do they enjoy after they are given this status. So that is also important for us to know. So coming to the editorial page, sports service society by providing vivid examples of excellence. So definitely sports serve the society by providing vivid examples of excellence. So from injuries and then reviving back and then even, winning gold medals, that their story of sports persons is definitely very inspiring. So again, this article is about disqualification and the defamation law. So we've already discussed in detail about the constitutional articles and the Supreme Court judgments regarding disqualification. So you can visit a previous video regarding the same. So talking about the tractor sales, so we see the sales of two-wheelers, they have hit a 10-year low, and that of tractors, they are at an all-time high. So two exactly opposite things. So this could be an indication that it is the non-agricultural sector, which is today a drag on India's rural economy, because we are seeing that the tractor sales, they are at an all-time high. So this is pointing towards the expansion of the agricultural activities and the agricultural sector. So this chart, the second chart, is showing the rural wages growth. So it is in the agricultural sector, you can see how sharply it has increased, whereas in the non-agricultural sector, it is like performing moderately, but compared to the agricultural sector, it is very low. So what is the Marburg virus disease? So it is highly virulent disease. It spreads to humans from the fruit bats, and it is often fatal also. And 5 people, they have already died in Tanzania because of this disease. So 5 out of total 8 individuals infected with the Marburg virus. There's a highly infectious Ebola-like disease. They have died in Tanzania's northwest Kagera region. It spreads from fruit bats to humans. Earlier, it was known as the Marburg hemorrhagic fever, and it is a severe, often fatal hemorrhagic fever. Marburg, like Ebola, it is a filovirus, and both the diseases are clinically similar. So Rosetus fruit bats, they are considered the natural host of the Marburg virus. However, African green monkey is imported from Uganda, were the source of the first human infection. And it was first detected in 1967 after simultaneous outbreaks in Marburg and Frankfurt in Germany and in Belgrade, Serbia. So the disease, it has an average fatality rate of around 50%. So it's highly contagious disease and really fatal also. So symptoms includes high fever, muscle aches, and a severe headache at any time between 2 and 21 days after infection. And then around the third day of symptoms, patients, they also report abdominal pain, vomiting, severe watery diarrhea, and cramping. So coming to the diagnosis and the treatment, so it is difficult to clinically distinguish MVD from the diseases such as malaria, typhoid fever, and other viral hemorrhagic fevers. However, it is confirmed by the lab tests of samples which, like the coronavirus and Ebola, they are extreme biohazard risk. So there is no approved antiviral treatment or vaccine for it right now. So as we were talking about disqualification, because Rahul Gandhi has been disqualified from parliament. So even in 1975, the court disqualified Indira Gandhi from the parliament. So nearly half a century before Rahul Gandhi, his grandmother was the former Prime Minister of India. She was too disqualified from the parliament, also as a consequence of a court's decision. And the comparison, however, ends here because she was disqualified by a single judge bench of the Allahabad High Court, which found her guilty of corrupt electoral practices in the elections of 1971. So the decision, it was taken by Justice Jagmohan Lal Sinha, which was stayed and subsequently reversed by the Supreme Court, and that would be the trigger for Indira to declare the emergency, which would change the politics of India forever. So this was a very famous case. So we know it by the name of Raj Narayan case. So he was the one who filed the case against her, as he was defeated by Indira Gandhi in the election to the Rai Bareilly Lok Sabha seat in March 1971. High Court found her guilty, and that's when she was basically held for the misuse of police and army personnel, judges, magistrates, and gazetted officers. So because of this Allahabad High Court's decision, the Prime Minister was disqualified from the Parliament and from holding any elected post for 6 years from the date of the decision. But right now, it is like 6 years after the release from the prison. So this is one change, and obviously this decision, it was appealed in the Supreme Court, and the court was basically, it was on vacation at that point of time. And the vacation bench gave a partial stay on the High Court's order, so it allowed Indira Gandhi to continue as Prime Minister, but barred her from voting in the Parliament proceedings, and said that she could not draw her MP's salary also. But a day after Supreme Court's interim order, and she declared a national emergency on the grounds of internal disturbance under Article 352 of the Constitution. So during that period of emergency, Indira Gandhi's government passed the 39th Amendment to the Constitution, which introduced Article 329A, which said that the elections of the Prime Minister and the Speaker, they cannot be challenged in a court of law. So that's how basically she tried to save her position. And for us, it is important to remember about 39th Amendment and what it was all about. It introduced Article 329A. And on 7 November 1975, a five-judge bench of Supreme Court headed by the then CGI A.N. Ray unanimously upheld Indira Gandhi's 1971 election, setting aside the rulings of the vacation bench of the High Court. So the decision of the High Court was completely turned down by the Supreme Court, and Article 329A was also omitted by the 44th Amendment Act of 1978, which was passed by the Janta government. So later on, even this article was omitted. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining on Sarkari, and there's also a PDF link that is shared with you guys in the description box. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the like button for this video.